I would effectively do away with ground rents altogether.
Right.
I've seen that some people are a bit uneasy about that. I wrote an article proposing exactly that in the Estates Gazette about 6 months ago. The only reply that came back that voiced any dissent with my proposal was from a house builder, which said that it didn't like the idea of not having the icing on the cake. So they sell the cake, and then the icing is the ability to collect ground rent for a long time.
In terms of future leases, it would be relatively unproblematic. I think dealing with the situation for past leases it could be done legally. It would undoubtedly, I think, face quite a serious Article 1, Protocol 1 challenge if you scrap ground rents altogether. And probably, I think, looking at the Strasbourg case law successfully. That said, I think the legal mechanics of it are one thing. It's a policy decision in the end, I think, rather than a legal one. It would be technically possible to do it.
Okay. The government's proposing to cap ground rents at £10 a year. Is there any legal significance from any of our colleagues here on why it's £10, not £100? Why £10?
£10, I believe, is the amount that is fixed in right to buy leases, if I'm correct in understanding that. But beyond that, it is the figure that has been proposed in the consultation document.
So there is no particular legal reason from any of your perspectives why it's £10?
Not so far as I can
Okay.
I think it's actually a mistake, if I may, because
why do you think it's a mistake?
Well, because in terms of value, it might seem to be little more than nil or a peppercorn. But one of the issues preventing the adoption of common hold, as Guy has pointed out, is frankly the existence of ground rents. Full stop. And as long as they exist, even at a relatively minor level, it will be a major impediment to the adoption of common hold.
Right. There is a further issue as well, insofar as one has a ground rent which is at a monetary value. That money will be worth something, and therefore it will be worth collecting a large number of those ground rents if one were an investor. And whilst you smile, it is possible to bring forfeiture proceedings if you have a ground rent of £10 in arrears for more than 3 years, with all of the associated stress and cost that can incur. So there is a difference, and as long as one has a monetary value, there is in law action which a landlord can take against a leaseholder, providing that the ground rent is in arrears for more than 3 years.
But not for a peppercorn.
Not for a peppercorn. Right. So that would be the legal significance, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think the £10 is a very, very strange number, to be quite honest. I'd be surprised if actually it costs less than £10 to raise that, if you think of the cost of administration, frankly, stamps and so forth. So I don't really see why you're putting in a cap of £10. If the premise is to get rid of the professional landlord, then make it a peppercorn. Why give them £10 and sort of say, well, take that and take it or leave it?
If you're going to set a ground rent, there's no point in having it at £10 because it's the cost to collecting that is more than the £10. You might as well go to a peppercorn.
I think that if the developers and the owners of these onerous ground rents don't intervene, as I've said in our submission to you, government should intervene.
Even on existing leases?
Yes, I mean that's
right.
where there's a particular problem. We've said that a lot of the reforms that have been put forward, including the work that the Law Commission is doing as well, is prospective.
Yes.
So if you're a new lessee in that position with ground rents of that kind, then you're going to be assisted. But if you're an existing lessee, you don't appear to be assisted by what's proposed, as I said in our submission to you, and that's why government intervention. There's an argument for it.
The Scottish Long Leases Act did something around reducing the rents, but I will, and I'm sure Jonathan will say, very few leases in Scotland. Australia, they did it, but the government did have to compensate. So I do think there are wider unintended consequences. So you would have to be careful. I do like the argument for the doctrine of non-derogation of grant, because that means you're not legislating to scrap ground rents, you're legislating to right what is essentially a wrong in that there has been a derogation of grant if you're turning a long lease into an assured short-hold tenancy. Now, I have to say this hasn't been proved in a court of law, and we'd hope to see a test case, but that would seem to be a nice way of doing it, if that's the right word, which would only penalise those people who have gone beyond what is reasonable.